Hello and thank you for joining me on the Waters and Stanton video channel. QRP, the skill set. How skillful do you need to be to operate QRP successfully? QRP, what does QRP mean? Well, QRP means running low power. And I think it's a basic reference point that 5 watts or below is regarded as QRP. Some people will stretch it and say that anything below 10 watts is QRP, but basically it's low power. And it's a part of the hobby which has got a lot of following. Now, I can recall in Radcom more than a few years ago actually, a banner headline that said, QRP, life is too short. Quite an offensive banner headline, I think. I have to point out, of course, that it wasn't the RSGB that actually put that banner headline up. It was a trader that put the banner headline up. And then, more recently, I heard somebody say, well, you should never put QRP after your call sign. It's not part of your call sign. When you're calling CQ, don't put QRP after your call sign. It's not part of your call. Well, actually, that has been used for many, many years without causing any offence at all. And I think Ofcom have made it quite clear now that you can put whatever you like after your call. You can put G30JV, oblique QRP. But basically, if you're calling CQ, there's no harm in putting at the end of the call QRP. I think it's a good idea because it alerts other people that you're running low power. You know, sometimes if I'm listening on the radio and I hear a weak signal, I might think, well, it's a bit marginal. I'm not going to go back to him because it's a bit marginal. But if he sends QRP, then I think, well, I will go back to him because he's running low power and he would appreciate a contact. And even if it is marginal, it'd be interesting to see what power he's running. So if you're getting into QRP and wondering whether you should or shouldn't mention QRP when you put it down to CQ, do mention it if you feel inclined to, because it will alert others that you are running QRP. And I've heard pile-ups many times now where the DX station has said, I think I heard a QRP station there. So it does pay off. A question that a lot of people ask, of course, is why do you bother? Why do they bother to operate QRP? What's the point of running low power when you can run much higher power and have many more contacts and contacts much easier? Well, I really compare it with fishing, you know. There's a restaurant I go down to occasionally and it overlooks a fishing lake. And you see 2 guys sitting on the side there with their rods out in the water, and sort of an hour or so goes by and you think, well, I haven't seen them catch anything, and perhaps an hour and a half, and then you think, oh, they've caught something. And then you look again and you think, well, they're just sitting there. Well, they could put a whacking great big net in the fishing lake if they were allowed to, and catch a lot more fish a lot quicker. The point is that there is a skill. I know nothing about fishing. I'm sure a lot of you that are watching this video will know a lot more about fishing than I do. But there is obviously a skill there and a satisfaction of putting a bit of bait on the end of a hook in the water and trying to catch a fish. And I'm sure that it's not that simple. But I think QRP is very like that. It's the satisfaction of making a contact at low power. Now, there's a number of advantages with low power. First of all, you haven't got to worry about EMF risk at all. So this headline that said QRP, life is too short, I'm not quite sure that's appropriate actually. A lot of the QRP operators that I come across and have met and had contacts with are quite elderly. I would say in my age range. A lot of G3s operate QRP. A lot of more recent stations do as well. But the point is that there's a certain amount of satisfaction, perhaps more than a certain amount of satisfaction. There's a lot of satisfaction in working stations when you're running very low power. And you may find that you go half an hour without making a contact, and others will say, well, I'll get bored. And it's a mindset. If you've got that sort of mindset, you can enjoy QRP. It's very satisfying. It's a good challenge, and it's quite amazing how many stations have worked some really good sort of DX distances running very low power. I was reading the other day about a station that was running, he had a loop antenna in his garden. He's running 10 watts, I think, on a loop antenna, and he worked ZL on 20 metres. Now, a lot of stations would be happy if they had a dipole and 100 watts and working ZL on 20 metres, but this guy was running about 10 watts into a small mag loop. So it can be done. The conditions have got to be right, of course. So what do you need to operate QRP? Well, I suppose it's fairly obvious you need low power. 5 watts, as I've just mentioned, I think just now, is the nominal sort of maximum power that is recognised as QRP. But there's no exact definition. But you need to run low power. Now, if you've already got a transceiver, I think most transceivers run, we can turn down to 5 watts. Some of them can go below that. And I've worked stations running 1 watt, but you can turn your transceiver down generally to 5 watts and enjoy some QRP. But I suppose serious QRPers are going to actually operate something that is really simple and fairly basic. Now, one of the transceivers that I've used in recent times is the Xiegu 6100. It's a nice little QRP transceiver. It's not overly expensive. You can get 10 watts out of it if you use an external supply, but you can turn the power right down to 1 watt. It's got an internal battery, so it's totally portable. Got an internal antenna tuner as well, so that's a Xiegu 6100, and we sell quite a lot of those. Got a lovely colour screen. I can't show you the screen out here because there's too much sun, but you can read the screen okay in the sunshine. If you want to go up markets, then the ICOM IC705 really is a nice QRP transceiver. That again runs 5 watts from an internal battery, will give you 10 watts out of you using an external supply. It doesn't unfortunately have a built-in antenna tuner, but its big advantage is it's got a lovely colour screen, which is very easy to read, and it covers the 2 metre and 77s band, so it gives you VHF as well. Now, there's some interesting transceivers coming out of China. China seems to be very prolific in producing QRP transceivers, and if you have a look on the internet, you'll find them. I would strongly suggest you pick a name that you recognise, and we stock the complete Xiegu range of transceivers. Excellent backup from the factory, very good value actually. And if you go onto our website and have a look under Xiegu, you'll find some QRP transceivers there. But there is a great deal of satisfaction in running a nice, small, compact QRP transceiver. And of course, it means to say you can go out, because a lot of these QRP stations in the summer, we're coming into the summer now, in the summer, they can go out and run QRP from some remote location, or a location at least where there's not so much noise, which is another good thing. So it's a great hobby for getting you outside. Now, I talked about the skill set. There is a skill, you know, in operating QRP, and it's only something you sort of get after your sort of a period of operating QRP. For the first time, you'll think, oh, I'm not making any contacts. Now, sometimes that can be because conditions are not very good. If you were to get your new QRP transceiver, set it up, and put out a CQ, you may be disappointed. It could be the conditions are not very good, or just nobody around that heard you. What you need to do is to give it time. But the great thing about QRP, I think, is try call-in stations rather than call-in CQ. Call-in CQ there is an exception to that, I'll come back to that in a minute, but call-in CQ on QRP is okay, but it might be better to listen to other stations call-in CQ, because at least you know they're listening and therefore they may have heard you. So if you're getting into QRP for the first time, I would strongly suggest that you tend to call stations that are calling CQ rather than calling CQ. Now, there is an exception to that, and the exception to that is the QRP channels, as dedicated QRP channels, and I spend quite a lot of time actually listening on 7.030 megahertz, which is the recognised calling channel for QRP, and generally speaking it's kept clear, and a little bit either side of that. If you call CQ on that channel running QRP, you'll probably get a reply, because there's an awful lot of QRP operators that listen on that channel. The same applies to the 20 metre band, which is 14.060 megahertz, rather high up on the CW sector. But if you call CQ there, very often you'll get a reply, because it's a recognised QRP calling channel. And that, I suppose, brings me on to CW. You know, if you're going to operate QRP, you're going to get far better results, I think, on Morse code CW than you will on phone. The reason, I suppose, is because you can always hear a weak CW signal enough to make contact. On sideband, you might hear it, but it's a bit too weak, it's a bit difficult to actually make a QSO. And a lot of QRPers operate on CW, and again, it's a skill set. You need to operate, or you need to learn CW, of course. You need to develop your speed on CW to have contacts. And ultimately with CW, you should be able to get to the point where you don't need to write it down. You can just listen to it and decode it as it goes along. When it comes to QTHs or perhaps names or something like that, then obviously you probably need to write it down. But normal conversational CW, you should eventually be able to copy it without having to write it down. And that is another skill set which a lot of QRP operators got. They're very good CW operators. It comes with practice. It's not an immediate thing. I did a video on CW a little while ago. You know, it's Marmite. You either like it or you hate it. But a lot of people that originally hated it actually have grown to like it. They realise the advantages of it, and particularly advantages when it comes to QRP operation. Now, I'm not here to encourage you to operate QRP or to do anything else. It's entirely up to you. But it is a side of amateur radio which gives great satisfaction if you are that way inclined. There's a skill set to it in operating QRP. It doesn't come immediately, but it's very satisfying. It's satisfying, I suppose, to know that you're making contact running very low power. It's a challenge. There's a challenge that gives satisfaction. And I think it's also satisfying to know that you're running very basic, simple equipment that's portable, equipment that's not consuming a lot of power, equipment that's not exposing you to EMF. You haven't got to worry about EMF with QRP. It's not a problem now. So if you haven't tried it, then you might want to try it. And if you are thinking about operating QRP, you don't need anything special. You may already have a transceiver that you can just turn the power down. And if you like it, then you may find that you want to get a QRP transceiver. I mean, we've got the IC705, we've got the Zigu range. Unfortunately, Elecraft prices are quite expensive now, but you might be able to pick up a second-hand KX3 or a KX2, and there are other brands around as well. So take a look, and you might find that you've got the opportunity of a new challenge in ham radio. As usual, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your support on this channel. It's much appreciated. I know a lot of newcomers watch this channel, and I try to sort of give as much information as I can. It's very difficult to give a balance, you know, because when you've been a ham operator as long as I have, you make these assumptions that people know what QRP is, they know what VSWR is, they know what common mode currents are. Well, of course, if you're a newcomer, you don't. So I do try to cover these. And if you've got any ideas for videos, then obviously let me know underneath this video. Put your comments down. In the meantime, enjoy your ham radio. You take care, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.